There we go. Okay, Stuart.
Okay. All right. What I thought I'd do today is do a spay pattern. Spay flies were obviously invented on the River Spey probably nearly 200 years ago. And the good thing that used to happen then was the gillies would use what they actually had on the estate. So there'd be pig's wool, Berlin wool, seal's fur, there'd be teal, a lot of teal would be used on the hackles, and bronze mallard for the wings, mainly. There'd be heron. Basically, anything that they shot on the estate, they would use in the flies. And one of the most famous traditional spay flies is a fly called the Lady Caroline. So I thought that's what we'd tie today. One of the things that spay flies were noted for usually were that they'd be fairly big, they'd have a long shank, usually no tail. The Lady Caroline is a bit different in that respect because it's got a tail. And they'd be multi-ribbed as well to add a bit of glint to the fairly dull materials of the day. So, but I still caught fish. I still caught live salmon. So I'm just going to start winding on with some white thread. And the reason I'm using white thread is it'll show off the dubbing a bit better. It'll show off the dubbing. Won't dull the dubbing down. Now, this is a blue heron spay hook, this is called. So it's traditional in shape. It's just so it's got an eye end. And obviously, years ago, that'd have been gut eye. But this has got an eye to fish with. So what we're going to do for the tail is use the golden pheasant breast feather. And it's only a very small one that we're going to use for this, for the tail. And how we tie this on is get the stem of the feather as flat against and just pull back. So you can see how that's in place there. So that's the tail in place. And then the multiple ribs. Nowadays, we're that used to using mylar-based tinsels. Well, years ago, that would have actually been made with metal. So these are metallic tinsels. And part of the reason that metallic tinsels are good is if you follow the wraps, you won't have to counter wrap the hackle, the body hackle. What you can actually do is you can hide the hackle behind one of the metal, and it actually protects the feather from the fish teeth, so it doesn't rip the hackle when you catch a fish. So I've got wide flat gold tinsel, silver oval tinsel there, and this is going to be gold oval. And what I've done, I've wrapped those around the shank in 3 different starting positions. And that's because we will want to try and form what's called a candy bar stripe all the way along. So then, for the hackle, as I said, they would use anything that was available in numbers. And one thing that the gamekeepers used to be able to do was shoot heron. So we've got a heron hackle here. It's from around the neck, so the fibres are nice and long, as you can probably see there. And what I'm going to do is just tie that in at the back towards where the flat gold tinsel is. Now then, I'm going to tie all of that all the way along the shank for simple reason. I don't want to make the rear end of this fly too bulky. All the way along. Right. Now then, this is Berlin wool. And what I've done to get this colour, it was actually a mix of colours, and it's green, it's red, and it's brown, and it's given like an olivey brown colour to the ribbon. So it's fairly difficult to dub without making it lumpy. So as you can see, I'm trying very hard to get a nice consistent dub there, which I think I've got there. And then in nice touching turns, go along the shank of the body. That. These spade patterns, by the way, still very, very much used in British Columbia for steelhead. There's still an awful lot of steelheaders that like using these old traditional patterns. And they still catch a lot of fish. Just a little bit more. So you can see there how I've created a nice and uniform body there. Right, now the interesting bit, the ribbon. Remember that we've got to get 3 ribs in here, so they've got to be fairly well spaced as well as the hackle. So that's nicely ribbed there. Pretty happy with that. And we'll go in with the gold. I'll do the same. And I'm cheating a bit here. I'm revolving the vice. On that. Now I'll go with the silver oval, and you'll see how hopefully I've measured this or guesstimated it right, so that all those hackles, all those ribs there are equidistant, and they're not too bad actually. I haven't done too bad there, so happy with that. I'll just wrap those off and then just snip those off. What I'm going to do, just for a bit of added security, I'm just going to drop in a 1/2 inch there at the head. So hopefully nothing should slip now. Right, so what I was on about, you can see this big wide gold metal tinsel there. I'm going to use that as a bit of a guide to wrap my heron behind. And this,
Stu, signal gone dead.
there you go. Am I still on?
Are you back now, Stu? Yeah, you're back.
Okay, sorry.
He looks like a badger.
The chicken gets out, Stu.
So there you go. That's so you can see how nice and webby and shrimpy that's looking. You can see that there's lots and lots of movement inside that heron hackle there. What I'm going to do is just to train that to keep nice and tight to the fly. I'll just wrap those around there for now. And then what we'll do is for the head hackle, it's just golden pheasant rump again. Pick one of the longer fibres, one of the bigger feathers that you've got. What I'm actually going to do now is, now that I've used the white thread there, I'm going to swap it for the black thread just at the head, so that we've got a nice black little head at the front. And I'm just going to give it a good wax, simply to try and hold everything in place. So you can see how I'm just trying to teach those fibres to go downwards, and you'll probably see why later when I put the wing on. So with the rump feather, what I've done, I've prepared it by pulling out those centre fibres at the point. I've just created a little V there with the top fibres, which I will then tie in and fold backwards so that they're locked in. And a couple of wraps of that will be enough. Okay, so that's the body and the hackle all done. It's just dropping a bit dark. Yeah, that's a bit better for me. What I'm going to do is just create a bit of a bed at the head there. And what that bed of tying thread does there is it just lifts the thread up above the hackle points there where I've put the hackles in. And the reason being is if I was to put a wing in at that point and there was a big lip, it would actually mean that the wings wouldn't quite sit correctly. Now then, this is something that people have a bit of a nightmare with, and it's bronze mallard wings. And I'll show you how I do them. Now, traditionally on the old spey flies, what they would actually do is tie the wings in pointing that way and fold them over. We're not going to do this. This is going to be a bit more of a modern way of preparing the wings. And all I've done is I've cut off some strips, and I'm going to put 2 pairs on each side. So I'm preparing 2 pairs of wings in effect. 2 on the left, 2 on the right. And I'm doing it by keeping the actual fibres on the stalk of the feather. I'll just find it a bit easier to manipulate the fibres afterwards by doing that. If you do find it easier just to cut them off individually, you can do. Now then, once again, there's another 2 ways of actually putting on your wings as well. There's tips down. There's also tips up, which that's tips up. What we're going to do is we'll actually do we'll do them tips up, which is more of an American thing, but they do look a bit sexier, if I'm honest, than the more traditional way. And what I'm going to do is just put them on individually, a couple of wraps here just to hold down in place. And I'm not going to be too overly fussy with the first pair, for the simple reason that the heron fibres on top of the shank will want to keep on moving these mallard fibres all over the place anyway. So there you'll see it's sitting nice and low. And I've kept the wing roughly just to the end of the body. When you actually see the profile of the fly, it will look very shrimp-like, and that's what's thought that the gillies were trying to get their flies to look like, was a bit like a shrimp with these feelers at the back. So there's one wing, one set of wings. I'll just go in with the next set.
Stuart, why are you using 2 each side then? Does it just make it more durable? Or?
It makes it more durable and gets the fly to sit correctly. Believe it or not, on some of the old classics, there was sometimes upwards of 6 pairs of wings on a fly.
Really?
Yeah. So, but you'll probably notice how much thicker it makes the wing look when it's actually done.
Yeah, it looks more dense, doesn't it?
Yes, and it's funnily enough, it's actually easier to sit on a couple of pairs or a few sets of wings than just the one.
Yeah.
As you can see, that is now sitting pretty nice and low and tight, really. So it's just what they did to make a nice shell back and make it look a bit like a prawn.
Yeah.
So then with the scissors now, I can just trim those off as tight as I can. I always find it easier to cut off one at a time, for the simple reason if you get too much material in a pair of scissors and start to cut off, it can flick everything around. So just a bit of wax, just to bind in tightly. See how I've humped that over just to make it a bit sexier. Nice little stubby head. The characteristic of these flies as well was having smaller sheds, so we'll try and keep that the same as well. I'll just give it a double whip just to make sure. So there you go. That's your Lady Caroline. Nice, and you can see how looking on top like that, it's sometimes called a keel. So the actual wings there are formed to look like the underside of a boat, which actually pushes the fly down and moves all these little fibres at the bottom. And that's what creates your mobility and translucent look to the fly. So that's your old, that pattern's well over 150 years old. It still catches fish now. It's a really pretty fly, the Lady Caroline, named after, I think it was the Duchess of Seafield, I think, who owned one of the beats on the Spey. Any questions?
No, Stu.
Yeah, looks very good.
It certainly gets rid of some bloody mallard stuff. If any of you as well, by the way, if any of you do use quite a lot of mallard and you end up with these little bits and pieces, keep them, and they're a really good substitute for Coq de Leon tails.
Yeah.
Saves you a fortune.
Good tip.
So, after doing an old classic style, there you go. You can see there as well the multi-rib shining through from the dubbing. Once that's had a few fish and whatever, and that starts to get a bit tattier, that ribbing really glints as opposed to shines through. And you can probably see there where that keel there I was on about, the boat keel wing, sort of comes from. Now then, if you just bear with me 1 second, I just need to get a hook.
Hiya everyone. Sorry I'm late.
Right, Gav. Right, Gav.
I've been a Cluehead dog all day.
Any good?
I had about 16, all off the top, all on dries.
Hey, Wayne done well up there on Sunday, didn't he? Wayne Jones had 20 on dries up there Sunday.
Was he on a boat or bank?
On the boat.
I was off a bank.
Yeah, he was on a boat. He fished the competition. He done well, to be fair.
Oh, right.
I think they stocked it Friday, didn't they, Gav?
They stocked it today.
Friday, I think they put 1,000 in.
I don't know. I know they stocked it today, and as soon as they stocked it, the lake just went dead, as if somebody flicked a switch.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was having fish after fish, and it just went gone. For about 3 hours, and then I had one or two more. We had to rescue a bloke out of the muck then, had to drag him out because he was up to his nuts in muck. Honestly, and I couldn't believe it when he walked. There was a part with his old stones, and he didn't bother with the stones. He went straight through the muck and vump.
You should have left him.
Well, one of his waders is still in there. And he was up on the popular bank and nobody could see him with the position that he was. He was screaming like a little pig. He was.
Was that by the old toilet block?
Just further down.
Yeah.
There's a patch there that's proper dodgy.
You know, and there was a part there with all stones. And where he was, you could feel the earth moving
Yeah.
as we was getting him out. And I said, why did you walk across there? Oh, he said, I wanted to fish there. Really?
Yeah.
Like you said, we should have left him there.
Well, what I thought we'd do after doing an old traditional style spey is to do a pattern which is a modern spey pattern, but the gillies on the spey still tie in a very noticeable style. And the style really is how long the wing is. They use a very long wing compared to other rivers around the UK. So this pattern is called a lightning bolt, and it accounts for an awful lot of fish. And the one thing that I find fairly noticeable about it is a lot of salmon patterns are designed to be seen really well. And I think if you look at that Lady Caroline from previously, it's a very drab, dull pattern using dull natural colours. And I think that for salmon sometimes, especially salmon that have seen a few different flies, these dull patterns actually work a lot better for the simple reason the fish don't see the fly coming from a mile away. They don't see it until the fly is literally on the nose, and they just snap at it through curiosity, really, just to see what it is. So what we'll do, once again, I'm going to start off with white thread. And the reason being is I'm going to put a butt on of fluorescent chartreuse. So it'll show up a lot better on white thread than black. I'm using gold wire, and I'm tying that on the bottom of the hook shank. And we're going to do 3 or 4 touching turns of wire going backwards, and then to lock that tag in, I'm going to thread the wire between the 2 legs of the hook so that it comes underneath and pulls it nice and tight. And now that tag is insecurely. That will not budge. Now, tags are very important on salmon flies. I don't think people realise just how important they are. You've probably heard people say that when they tie a long wing or a tail in on a double or a treble, that they wrap, that the fibres wrap between the hook. And the reason being is they haven't put a tag on and squeeze the material up against the tag. And what it does is it gets the materials to flare up and stops it from wrapping inside the hook when you're casting. So that's why tags are important, although it won't be on this pattern particularly. So this is just glow bright floss. And I'm just going to make a nice little butt there, which acts as a bit of a hot spot. And I've left that tag on there. Just double hitch that off. And go back into black there. Right, the reason that I've left that tag in there is I'm going to pull it along so that it's over the top of the tag, the hot spot there. And if I fold it back over and pull it tight, that's going to lock that tag nice and securely. So although it's a slippy man-made floss, that isn't going to budge at all. It's going to be nice and secure. And then with the gold wire again, we'll fix that to the bottom of the hook, out of the way so it doesn't really show. Gold holographic braid going to use that as the tinsel for the body. And what I'm going to do is cut the end of that. Instead of being square, it's now triangular shaped. And I'll tie the flat top part of the tinsel on top there and go down in nice touching turns, keep that body nice. And what that does is that little triangle there means that I can wind all the way along in nice touching turns, and there won't be any gaps. It's just covered up that angle where if I'd have tied it in flat, there'd have been a nasty angle and possibly the thread would have shown through. Just tie that off, and then with a wire, just counter wind that just to protect that mylar tinsel. Just cut that off. Oh, just a bit of wax there. Right, for the wing, this is a little bit like a fly called a willy gun, which is yellow, orange, and black bucktail. And all I've done is I've prepped it and I've spun it together to mix all of the feathers together, all the fibres together, sorry, in the wing. So in the water, it doesn't actually look yellow, orange, and black. It gives a colour of its own, and it's like a golden colour in the water, to be honest. But what I was on about with a modern space style wing, ordinarily on a fly like this, we'd probably have the wing somewhere like there, so probably twice as long as a hook shank. Spey guys tend to tie their wings longer, and the reason being is the river's that fast flowing. They want something to create quite a large wriggle to get that aggressive reaction out of the fish. Just snap that off nice and tight. And I'm just going to break the back of that fibre, bucktail fibre tail there, just so that it sits nice and low. This is just a flashaboo, Mirage flashaboo. And all I'm going to do is just match it up so that there's a strand each side, and that's the length of the wing. So that's all nice and tight there. And then we've got our chartreuse badger hackle, cock hackle. What I like to do is to measure the fibre length. So that's about right for this particular fly. Now I've stripped all the fibres off there up to the point that I want to use. And then once again, because the thinnest point of the hackle is obviously at the point, which will mean that we'll get a nicer, tidier fly. I'll tie in there. Just with a couple of wraps. 1, 2, and I'll tie that off. Just give it a couple of wraps just to make sure that that doesn't come undone. And then Mark Melville, who actually came up with this pattern, uses grey cock hackle as an over hackle at the head. And the reason he wanted grey in there was he'd noticed that a lot of the old traditional spey patterns had grey herring in there. So that's the only reason he wanted it in there. And like you said, a lot of patterns nowadays don't use grey for whatever reason, but years ago there was a number of patterns with grey in there. So it's a little bit unusual in that perspective, but it's a bloody good pattern. So just with some grey cockhackle. Three wraps, just to exaggerate that head hackle there. Snipping nice and tight. And you'll notice there I've gone back over the hackle a slight bit there to form the head. That's to keep it nice and compact. And just finish the head off. So there you go. There's a modern design space star fly there. You can see that there's still lots of movement in that, and that one's called the lightning bolt. And actually, there are a few similarities really in the actual profile and length and all the rest of it there. They're not that dissimilar, to be honest, in the actual current when everything gets flattened down. So just an easier and quicker way of tying the same sort of thing there, but still dull colours. They do tend to show up in the peaty water of the spay. So there you go. That's the lightning bolt. Just needs varnishing a few times at the head. I'll be honest, they're the only patterns that I'd thought of tying for you, Derek, to be fair, because I thought that the Lady Caroline would take a lot longer to tie. The wing went on a lot easier than I thought it normally goes on.
Oh, fair play.
Stuart, when do you decide to use one hook or two?
A double hook, you mean?
Yeah.
Most people nowadays, certainly in England and Wales, single hooks are the go-to. I think you are still allowed to use a double on the Y in Wales, but they have to be barbless.
Yeah.
In Scotland, some of the rivers you can still use trebles, believe it or not. But the majority of your beats you can use doubles. Simply because there's so few salmon now. If you do get a take, they don't want you to lose them.
Yeah.
So that's why doubles. And it's funny because some flies actually look nice on a double, but don't look right on a single. And equally, some flies look good on a treble, but don't look right on a double. It's weird how salmon flies have developed, but I personally say nowadays that there's no need to have trebles. I think singles and doubles are more than good enough.
So would you tie the same fly on a single?
Yeah, would do, yeah.
Whether it's originally tied on a treble or a double?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, because when I fish in America or BC, you have to use single barbless hooks by law, and I personally haven't noticed that I've lost any more fish by doing that than using doubles over here.
Yeah, double.
And I haven't used a treble for years. It's probably been 20 odd years.
Doubles or trebles just seem a bit more cruel.
Yeah. To be honest, doubles aren't too bad because when a double goes in, it tends to get a double hook hold in, so it doesn't move around. I've seen damage caused by barbless singles because what happens is as you're playing big fish, it starts to circle around in the fish mouth and it creates a massive bloody hole. And I don't know whether you know, some of the carp lakes, etc., have actually started to ban barbless hooks because of that.
Yeah.
It's causing a bit more damage to fish than a barbed hook.
Yeah, they've started using micro barbs on there, lots of them now, on the carp lakes.
Yeah, and that's why I think some of these hooks where you can just crimp the barb down a bit.
Yeah.
What happens then? It just creates a little bit of a bump and it just stops that hook from moving a bit too much.
Yeah.
And helps protect the fish. But having said that, the trebles that you was on about, I've seen trebles cause a lot of damage to fish. I personally don't like them.
Yeah, top lips and bottom lips, I suppose, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks for doing that for us tonight.
No problem, Derek. If I'd have known I was going to knock that one out that quick, I'd have come up with something else. I'd have got my material sorted, but usually those things take me forever because the wings pee me off. Tim knows he's laughing because I had to teach him how to bloody do mallard wings. I'm a pain in the arse, isn't that, Tim?
Oh, tell me about it. Steve Cooper's had a fortune off me.
Do you know the little cheat with them?
Say again, Gav?
Do you know the little cheat with Mallard?
Fold them.
Go on.
Well, no, is if you cut them on the stalks,
give
the underside a spray with air lacquer, your wife's air lacquer, and it holds it in position for you.
There you go.
Honestly, it is. I wouldn't say who showed me that years ago, but it works. If you just shape them, you want to do it, one spray of air lacquer, done.
Yeah.
Done.
Okay.
Hey, Gav, I wish you'd have told me that 12 months ago before Steve Cooper had about 2,000.
It keeps the business going. To be honest,
I used
Tim,
to order a pack a day.
To be honest, Tim, you don't look as if you use air lacquer, to be honest. But it works. It does work. Spray the
I can imagine.
Spray the underside.
Oh no, actually, what's his name? Bloody Little. What's his name?
Stuart.
Tim?
Stuart.
Paul Little. He uses gun. Do you know the heated gun glue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He puts that onto his wing. Onto the butts of his wings so that he can mould his wings the way that he wants to, and the glue holds them in place.
Wow.
Right.
That must be hard.
Well, I think it's easier doing it the old way, to be honest, but you know.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way, it's just what suits you.
Whatever works, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions for Stu?
No.
Most are still on mute.
Have you pressed
Stu,
the
what time
record
do you want
button
me to
this week?
pick you up Saturday?
Say again, Tim?
I said, I got a question for him. What time do you want me to pick him up Saturday?
What time do you want to be? Say 8 o'clock. There's no need being early, is there?
No, I'll pick you up about 8, Stu.
Sound. Brilliant. Cheers, Tim. Top.
Where are you off to? Saturday then?
Well, yeah,
secret.
decided yet, really.
Secret. It might be the pub at this rate.
I was going to say. Bloody hell, huh? There's no sign of any rain for another week, is there?
No.
Couple of days over the weekend, isn't there, in Shropshire area?
Yeah. They said that today in Shropshire, though. I think they never had nothing, have they?
No.
We had about 10 minutes here today, Tim.
And we've had, mate, honestly, we've had nothing. And I've only been up here working, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we had about 10 minutes in the afternoon, but it wasn't heavy.
No. That's been nice here today, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard how Al's getting on?
He had 2 last night.
Did he? Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant.
He had 2 last night.